Good evening, and welcome to today's PGCC 65th anniversary screening of The Barber of Little Rock. I'm joined here tonight by Arlo Washington out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And I'm just going to read my prepared remarks so that you'll have an opportunity to hear some of the flowetry involved in this. I was truly inspired by the story. I actually lived in Little Rock, Arkansas for 2 years. Two of my children were born in Little Rock, Arkansas. I know about 630.
Okay.
And I-630 cuts through the city, and it is a north-south divide. Some of you know about redlining. Some of you know about what train tracks through towns in the south mean, and that's a real instance there. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. It is a privilege to host this screening of the Oscar-nominated documentary, The Barber of Little Rock, featuring the remarkable story of Mr. Arlo Washington. Arlo is not just a barber in Little Rock, Arkansas. He is a cornerstone of his community and a visionary entrepreneur. For over 2 decades, Arlo has utilized his barbershop not only as a place for grooming, but as a hub for fostering financial literacy and economic empowerment. His establishment of the community's first community development financial institution, or CDFI, was a beacon of hope and a source of support for many, offering services tailored to meet the unmet credit needs within his community. Tonight, after the screening, we will dive deeper into these themes through a structured conversation, very brief, using a facilitation technique known as impromptu networking. This activity is designed to help us share and discover personal stories and insights related to financial challenges and solutions, much like those Arlo has implemented. You'll also have the opportunity to connect with fellow attendees, exchange experiences, and perhaps spark ideas on how we can bring similar changes to our own communities. As we move into the film, keep in mind the resilience and innovation that drive Arlo's work. Think about the role each of us can play in shaping our communities, and prepare to share your thoughts and stories during our conversation afterwards. We're here tonight not just to watch a film, but to inspire and be inspired, to learn and to share, and to take forward the lessons we gather here into our own lives and neighborhoods. So let's begin the evening with an open heart and mind, and be ready to be moved by Arlo's story and contribute to our collective conversation. So I have 5 questions I want you to ponder as we go throughout the evening. Number 1, how can the concepts of financial literacy and community-based financial services introduced by Mr. Washington be applied in our own community? So as you're watching the film, I did an exercise this morning called meditative viewing, and in that, I didn't watch the film at all. I listened to it. I listened to the voices. I listened to the exchanges. I listened to the transitions. And I felt the power of the documentary without even seeing it. So I've seen it. I've also not seen it and listened to it. And now tonight I'm going to see it with other people. So I think it's going to be very moving that way. And if you want to, it's not very long either. So with it being the length of time it is, I think we can take a lot from it. The second question I want you to ponder: what are some local needs that could be addressed through initiatives similar to Mr. Washington's CDFI? Now, we have 5 CDFIs in the greater Washington, D.C. metro area. One of them is FSC First in our community, which is sort of connected and related to the Prince George's County government. There's also WAKIF. Some of you are familiar with the Washington area community investment firm there. And there's some others also in the area. But the SBA, the Small Business Administration, also underscores and highlights the development of small businesses. And some of what they do when they point businesses places is they refer people to CDFIs. Yeah. And I'm sure that's taking place on the south side of 630. Number 3, reflecting on Mr. Washington's stories, what role do you think small businesses can play in community development and empowerment, including places where you get your hair done, your nails done, and such, community shops where you have a relationship with the business owner? And that's what's transpired for you as well, and you'll see that highlighted. Question 4, considering the impact of local entrepreneurs like Mr. Washington, how can we better support or create similar community-focused projects in our own neighborhoods? And we have a number of students here. We have 26,000 students in general. Prior to COVID, it was 38,000 students as a community college. And a number of them are in the business and entrepreneurship department. And at some point, we're gonna have students here like who ask you questions about that. But one of the things that I want all of us to do is think about our own families. Who in our family has a business idea? Whether it's a mother-in-law, a brother, a cousin, someone who needs nourishing, pushing. There are so many free programs towards this. We have folks like Tremaine Davis. We have folks like Lewis Powell in the room who do small business coaching. And it's free through the center, places like this. So very important. We also have continuing education courses and 4-credit courses. And so, I think we need to push people in that direction. So ask ourselves that. And finally, what are some potential challenges we might face if we attempted to implement similar community support systems here? Kevin Durant, All-Pro, I know the Phoenix Suns, the playoffs, all that, but Kevin Durant has a wonderful documentary on Prince George's County. And in it, he tells the tale of about 3 different counties that we have here. And I'm curious to know, based on what you've learned even from being here in Prince George's County recently, but also based on your experience in Little Rock, like how can we facilitate rags to riches, so to speak, stories? How can we pull out of folks who have creative ideas, who are oppressed, who are feeling left behind, and still yet encourage them and get them to the finish line? So with that, the next phase of this, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell everyone before we screen the film, the ride you've been on, the rush you've been on over the last 6 months of your life.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to give an honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me to be here and be on this platform and allow me to share, be here with you all. So I appreciate that. And thanks for that warm introduction as well. I was just really caught up in everything that you were saying. People trust emerged out of an unmet credit need in our community. In 2009, Arkansas became a credit desert because, as you know, predatory payday lenders operate in low and moderate income communities where access to traditional bank finance is not readily available if you don't have perfect credit or you don't have any collateral. And so so we emerged out of that unmet credit need. So we're the only state that has a usury rate cap, meaning that a lender can't charge over 17% in Arkansas. And so that ran a lot of at the time we had 200,000 Arkansans utilizing the services. And there were, so what that did was that created a credit desert in all of the interior counties in Arkansas. And low and moderate income community members were driving to border states to get loans or going online, still accessing predatory payday loans. And of course, a predatory payday loan can put community members in debt traps and not allow them to pay them back. If you have a buy here, pay here, where you can buy the car, they will, or you get a title loan. Then a title loan, you're making the payments, but you still not eating up that principal. And so, because of the high interest rates. And so our legislators did a good job with coming up with that law to prohibit predatory payday lending, but they didn't come back with a safer alternative. And so that's what left the gap in who had access and who didn't have access. And so we emerged out of that. I'm a barber by trade. I've been a barber in my community for the last 22 years. You mentioned Kevin Durant. I didn't get a chance to cut his hair, but I did. I used to fly to Phoenix 3 times a month to cut Amari Stoudemire, Joe Johnson, even cut Steve Nash hair. And so, being in the community, being a barber in the community and a well-known barber, I had lots of people coming to the barbershop to get information, other business owners coming in the barbershop, and we were sharing information and stories. And one of the most common things we heard was, we can't access capital. There's not enough funding. The bank won't lend us any money, or they got undercapitalized, not having enough money to be able to really, just enough to frustrate your purpose. And so wanting to solve for that, I've always been a self-driven individual. My mother passed away when I was 17, and I have two younger sisters. My parents never married, two great parents never married. They're both deceased today. So I have a lot of drive from just wanting to be the solution to the problem, not talk about the problem. We know about slavery. We know about a lot of the historical challenges that low and moderate income communities, predominantly black communities, have had in accessing capital and accessing credit. Credit is an asset. It takes credit to get credit. If you have a low credit score, you won't qualify at a traditional financial institution. You mentioned CDFIs. And CDFIs, there's 6 different types of CDFIs. One of the things that the CDFI fund is pushing for now is that CDFIs would incorporate consumer loan products or personal loan products to be inclusive and create inclusive local economies with the community members. And so consumer loans is what we started out with. I started providing $250 loans. They had 5% interest rate with 6-month terms. And of course, that's not a sustainable model. However, it sounds good and it's sexy, but it's just not sustainable. But we started out making loans to our captive audience, which is our students. I remember I have a barbershop, but I was driven to open up start a barber college because we wanted to create jobs. We wanted to create opportunity. We wanted to be able to train and place barbers. Plus, I knew what the profession did for my life, so I felt like it would be good for somebody else as well. And so in doing that, we noticed that tuition, the students were federally funded. So we do Pell Grants and direct loans to the Department of Education. We've been nationally accredited through the Council on Occupational Education for 15 years and administering Title IV funds to students. But in doing that, notice they had to have financial literacy because they didn't know the difference between a grant and a loan. You can look at the student loan default rate in America, and that's probably going on not just at Washington Barber College, but at campuses, all over, where students are not really getting a good understanding of their finances or credit or loans, and they're getting into debt, it's falling into default. So we wanted to be able to really provide a real robust financial literacy program, and that's what we did. And in doing that, we saw, so many of us don't have financial literacy. They don't teach it at home, they don't teach it at school, they don't teach it at church, and just having the money talk don't happen a lot of times in households. And so we started making these loans. They show up in need. They need childcare, any wraparound services, childcare, food, clothes, you name it, they need it. And a lot, it's coming out of my pocket, providing emergency funds to our students because we wanted them to succeed. And in doing that, I'm like, man, this is not going to be sustainable because I'm not having no funding sources, no banks is funding this, So a question I asked, well, where are the government agencies that are here to help, meet this unmet need, with pent up demand? They had pent up demand, bending need. And so found out about the CDFI fund, the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, which are specialized financial institutions. They're nonprofit in nature, but they are the middleman between banks, traditional banks, and community members that don't qualify for traditional bank products. But how many of the community's members know about CDFIs? A lot of them are in buildings up in the 3rd floor, around the corner, behind the elevator, in the closet, and no sign out front to show where do you go when you need help, when you need emergency help. But the payday lenders out there on Front Street, payday lenders out there with their sign, come here, get a loan, make it easy. And so we wanted to be able to be a safer alternative. But I'm gonna stop there and because I can go on and on, we have more to share.
And we will do Q&A following the screening. So with that said, who wants to see a film?
Economic justice is actually having the opportunity, a real opportunity, how you create generational wealth. How do you teach others to create generational wealth? The racial wealth gap is not a $1 million problem, it's not a $1 billion problem, it's a $1 trillion problem. It's been a never-ending story. It is a challenge when you can't put gas in your car, when you can't buy food, you can't pay your light bill, or you can't pay your rent. Life is going on, life is happening, you know, and trying to put a Band-Aid and stop the bleeding on the effects of generational poverty. Investments and resources that are meant to get to these communities haven't gotten to them. There has to be economic warriors in the community to create economic justice.
Hey, what's going on, man? Everybody good?
My name is Arlo Washington, and my purpose in life is to advance equity, create opportunities, and build the community.
Just for the sake of teaching you departing, I want you to do this right here. Now watch this. Watch this right here. So we'll go 1/4 of an inch in, 1/4 of an inch into the eyebrow, take the point of your comb, you put it on the scalp, take the other hand right here, and we'll put it back here in the nape area. And then we'll just take that point of that comb and just keep it on the scalp all the way till you feel that point with your index finger. We feel that point with your index finger, just slide your finger up the comb that way and pull it out to the side. That's one side. All right, so, but you really want a good straight line, so you can always go back and do it again. You just need to put a little bit more pressure on the scalp when you're going through. So we take that and clamp that up. Yeah, there we go. Appreciate that. So for the first couple of weeks, this is all y'all doing. 6 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How long did it take? 5 minutes. Now you're ready to move on to something else. But let me let you try it. Good job, Mr. LeBron. Good job, Hughes. You use some of the techniques? Yeah. But you got that looking smooth. What we gonna talk about, JB?
Get our foot in the game.
How to get your foot in the game? Build your clientele up, learn the business, get a name for yourself out here, and then open your barbershop up. When I was 20, I opened my first barbershop. I worked in my partner's shop for 2 years first and built the clientele up, right? So I had about maybe 80, 90, 100 people coming to me every week. Then I opened up the barbershop. But right now, while you're in school, be patient, practice, cut as many heads as you can. When you leave and go to home, if you got little cousins, you got people in the neighborhood, cut as much as you can, because the more you cut, the better you get. Hey, what's up, Bronson? What's going on with you?
I ain't just been busy.
Are you getting finished with that application?
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling People Trust. How can I help you?
Yeah, is my credit score gonna mess me up, ain't it?
No, ma'am, we don't base it off your credit score.
Trucking Logistics LLC. This your plan right here. Have you got any business funding? You've been doing this all out your pocket.
It's just all out of my pocket so far. As far as just driving,
Yeah.
I've been in the business for 10 years, and my dad is a driver as well. I've covered every corner of the transportation industry, so I would want to create those jobs for other people.
Tell me what it is that you want to do.
Long term, I would ultimately like to have my own salon or become an instructor.
Okay. And you've been traveling to your customers?
Yes.
Like their homes,
Yes.
their...
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that ain't...
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any operating capital right now?
Fortunately, I do not at this time.
Okay. So you need gas money.
Correct.
You need food money. Products and supplies.
And I have a business name. I made my own logo. I've been working.
So we spoke on the phone. You were saying you were interested in a loan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm just gonna get this out. So tell me about what you're doing with your businesses.
I'm barber stylist. I do credit restoration. I also have a t-shirt and decal line.
Okay.
Due to the things that I deal with in life, such as sickle cell, having a pacemaker, having 80% mass in my right breast, going to treatment once a week.
And then you still run 3 businesses?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I heard that now.
You know, capital is the lifeblood of the community. If the blood ain't circulating, then you're gonna have some issues. So the blood has not been circulating for a long time. Why is it that we overlook this economically segregated community? Why is the issue swept under the rug and not talked about?
What do you think and feel when you hear the word ownership?
For me, when I think about ownership, it's owning my own home so that I'll have something to pass down to my children.
Nobody in my family own anything. So ownership is important to me because I want to create jobs and opportunities for my boys and my little cousins and my nephews.
My oldest is 27 and my youngest is 7. And I think about it a lot. Of course, nothing was passed down to me, and I don't have anything to pass down to them.
It just feels good to know that you have something that is yours that nobody can take away. For so long, we haven't had anything that was ours. Yeah, we damn proud of, when we do own something, whether it's a Cadillac or a house or a boat.
It's the idea of it belonging to you and that you can self-determine what will happen to it without having to ask anyone. You don't have to ask for permission.
Come on in. All right, thank you. Hey, you met Mr. Shonda. I met you. Okay. I've been making Philly cheesesteaks and hoagies since I was 16 years old. I've been in restaurant business for 26 years.
You have a food truck? Or
I have a food truck. I have a food truck, but my ambition within 12 months is to have a brick and mortar.
So who do you bank with right now?
Well,
and did you consider them for getting the loan?
They gave me the understanding that they wouldn't owe me any money.
Really?
They still want my business. They still want me to process my credit card payment.
Your business is still making deposits in this bank that
yes.
in turn will not make you a loan.
Yes.
The wealth gap has grown tremendously. The CDFI is a community development financial institution. All people matter. Regardless of their credit history, we are not restricted. So
I was at a traditional bank for 9 years. Sadly, banking while black is a real thing. They don't necessarily train you to know that, but once you get in there and you actually see that the person coming in, if they're white, they're gonna offer them credit cards, they're gonna offer them loans, financing, all of those. But you come in, you're black, it's no services offered.
Sometimes the interaction with the teller is, you can see the difference in how they treat you. So I just don't use banks.
Banking while black does exist. Banking while black, driving while black, eating while black. Your waiter or your waitress can treat you differently. I mean, there is just so many things. It's crazy the things that black people have to deal with.
It becomes an experience that you try to avoid. The disappointment of it. And rather than go through the frustration, you work around it. It's a workaround.
Big banks, they don't know the community. They don't know them. They don't have a relationship.
And you want to be able to be sustainable, and you want to be profitable, and you want to be scalable. But we just want you to think about every aspect of it and best position yourself.
This helps you to really build
your credit profile so we can provide you with some ongoing technical assistance to kind of help you along the way. We got the name people trust because trust in the financial system is just not there.
My goal is to restore the trust in a system that may have not been built for you. So we try to see what's the problem, how can we help, we find a way.
I've always wanted to own my own business.
I hear it so much. If you could just give me a chance, just give me a chance to prove that I'm trustworthy, that I'm credit worthy, that I can run this business successfully.
Y'all ready? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That should be a backhand. She knew. Come on, let's go to 1.
Historically, barbers have been the go-to in the community. One of the oldest and most prestigious professions. They were the doctors. They did the bloodletting. They did the tooth pulling. They were the priests. One customer lost his job, and he had been a faithful customer, coming all the time. I mean, bringing his family, his kids, everybody, you know. He said, Mr. Washington, he said, I'm down really bad, and I need to borrow $150.
I've been a barber in the community for over 20 years. So when the community started hurting, what do you think they're gonna come to? They came to the people that they can come to for help.
He said, I'm getting a job, and I can pay you back in 30 days. So I made him a loan. You know, I didn't think he was gonna pay it back when I gave him the loan at the time, but he came back and he paid it back. And a couple weeks later, he came back again.
Guess what he did? He paid me back.
So I made him another loan, and he paid that loan back. So then we started thinking about, well, how can these small loans at that size really have an impact? If they don't have credit, then they can't get a loan from a bank. That means they have to go to a loan shark, or they have to go to some payday lender that's going to never let them pay them off. And I thought about it, and I said, wait a minute, this is what's affecting my community.
So you see how it built up? Now, man, we done service like 2020, we serviced 900 folks.
And so what we did was we applied to become a community development financial institution, which was put in place to be able to help low and moderate income communities that wouldn't otherwise receive the opportunity.
Let him down and let him go.
Come on in.
In April of this year, my house caught a fire. So, you know, I was pushed out.
I was calling to inquire about your rental assistance.
You're behind on rent now?
I forgot your name. Give me your name again.
Candace.
Okay. Cancer survivor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just a one-time deal. I believe we're the only rapid rehousing that is in central Arkansas.
How much does it cost you to live every month?
I don't know, because I ain't never been on my own.
Okay.
Have you been looking around?
Yeah.
I had a landlord in today, and I asked him, he doesn't have anything.
And when you move, we'll pay the security deposit and your first 3 months' rent.
Let's talk about a budget.
How's the job looking? Any?
Well, it's really that it's hard because I don't have nowhere to shower and stuff.
Right. That is one thing about Little Rock. There's just really not a lot of affordable housing.
There's a huge housing need.
Right.
There's just too many people waiting for help.
You're 4 months behind, but did she tell you the balance?
This is a grant, just an emergency grant, because I heard you say you didn't have any clothes, you didn't have any transportation, you know, if everything burnt up.
For 17 days in a hotel, man.
There you go. How much is the weekly rent?
The weekly rent?
Uh-huh.
It's not weekly. She was just gonna charge me like $5.25 a month.
My mother, she passed away with cancer, and so I'm just thinking, if since you know in that situation, maybe if we was able to do, you know, maybe a grant for a month, that'd give you time to find a place. How you think that works?
That'll help me.
I think that'll help. What you think?
That'll help me a lot.
Most of the time, it's state of emergency. But I needed help like yesterday. We never got the 40 acres and a mule that was promised. That's like the big elephant in the room. This was promised to you. You never got it. Nobody never talked about it. It didn't come up in any type of other political discussions. And the fallout is what we see: a huge racial wealth gap, economic injustices, and not really an end to it in sight.
Here in Little Rock, there is a physical divide. Have on one side, have not on the other. It's not a wealth gap, it's a wealth chasm. I-630, the Great Divide.
How's it going, man? You ready to ride? You know, when we cross I-630, you can tell a big difference. This neighborhood is the heart of the Black community. There are no banks over here, and you got about 30,000 community members over here.
You'd be hard-pressed to find an ATM.
That community has been economically segregated. Look at this. We got 5 boarded up houses on this little half a block. So we crossed I-630, and now we're going into the Heights. And in the Heights, maybe 8,000 in population, but you got 14 banks. And you don't see a boarded up house, not one.
Well, you have commerce here. You have places where business can exist. You don't see that on the other side of town. You know, then of course you have redlining, where banks would not make money accessible to people who lived in certain areas. And oftentimes those certain areas were areas where Black folks lived. This phenomenon of building interstates through Black communities, and they bring about destruction.
I'm gonna take you and show you our new location where we're opening up.
Right.
That's Red Line. This is the first financial institution ever in this community. And so...
And it looks good, too.
Thank you. We've been working hard.
Do you believe in the American dream? What is the American dream?
You tell me and we'll both know.
I was told this growing up. You work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, and you'll achieve your goal, right? And in essence, that's supposed to be true. But I have to say that I've sat at the table in front of my children and said, as much as this is supposed to be true, it is still possible that that may not happen for you.
Nice house, cars, family taken care of, bill free. Well, no, I'm just out here surviving, just trying to make a way. So I couldn't just elaborate what the American dream is. I wouldn't know.
There was a time in my life early on when I wanted to fix what my mother was going through, trying to take care of me. She had me when she was 16 years old, had to drop out of school, get a GED. So when I was born, I was brought home to this house. And my grandmother was a single parent with 16 kids in the house. And now my mother, at 16, was bringing home another addition to the family. You know, watching my mother early in my life and watching the sacrifices that she made for, you know, folks in the neighborhood, she wanted to be an inspiration to the folks that lived in the housing projects to let them know that they didn't have to stay there. This is where my mother was eulogized. She had cervical cancer. 2 weeks before I graduated high school, my mother passed away. She didn't see me walk. That was tough. I felt lost. That left me lost, feeling lost. Okay, what do I do now? You know, I have 2 younger sisters. Where do I go from here?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I have an 8-month-old. Like, you can't be without no lights.
I think the first thing is to get you off the streets. We're gonna do your emergency grant. Let's do a $1,500 grant. This is a new beginning. You know what I'm saying? I kind of adopted some of the mission that she had that she didn't get a chance to live out.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
It fell on me to carry the torch. My mother provided such a great example of being of humanity and having compassion and understanding that life circumstances happen. And when they happen, that people need compassion, people need restoration, people need rehabilitation, people need love. I want you and I want you to stand up for a second. I'm gonna show you something right now that we don't hardly ever do, but I want you to, for 2 minutes, I want you to look at him in his eyes. And I want you to be with him. And I want you to be with him for 2 minutes. All right, come close, right here. Now, don't look off. When you look in those eyes, think about your kids. Think about your loved ones. Think about the setbacks and the wins, all the hard lessons, and just see all the hurt, see all the pain. Be with him right now. Time. It's all right, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
I seen my big brother, man. I ain't seen him since I was 12 years old.
I say a lot, tell a whole story, you know, and that was uncomfortable for them. I know it was, because I've done it before. But that's an exercise that will help you if you're somebody that's introverted, you're somebody that's kind of in a shell, and help you be more assertive and help you to be more, you know, and understanding to what other people are going through. You went to prison. And when you went to prison, what did that mean?
10 years of my life. I mean.
And where'd that leave you?
Lost. So, you know, when you're secluded from the world for that amount of time, man, you become behind.
Okay, you 28, 27 now. What you gonna do? As a black man, you know, we not offered opportunities, especially after times that, you know, we made a messed up or made a mistake in our life. So it's like now, okay, I gotta do something. I always could cut hair, you know, but I just never thought, man, maybe I should go to school. I went in and enrolled at Washington Barber College. I learned so much, just things that, you know, things that you need to know to sharpen yourself up to be successful.
I did 7 years in prison, 7 years, 5 months, 6 days to be exact.
on a 30-year sentence, and I sit before you right now 16 years later, and I'm still not free. I was homeless 3 times from when I got out of prison. I was homeless 3 times. I went on to the shelters, did what I needed to do, saved my money up, got out. But my crime does not make me an eternal criminal.
Right. 3 of our barbers that were formerly incarcerated, and they were just each sharing the trauma that they experienced while being there, and how, you know, to be out, it's a huge adjustment.
So on day 1, if you have nothing, you ain't got a toothbrush, no toothpaste, all of those essential things, you right back at stress 1. Right after they get out, they call me within 72 hours. I'm able to send their name, their release dates, and how much time they did. And then I just email everything over, and People's Trust contacts them, and they go pick up a $325 grant, which I think is so great, because coming out of any system, especially the jail system, you don't come out with any money. You, Arlo, have made it possible. You are looking at everything from the perspective of inclusion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
See, where for so many years, I and so many have saw only exclusion.
It's truly community development, and that's developing. You can't develop a community if you don't develop the people.
Exactly.
The reason I do what I do, and what gives me energy to keep going, is equity, 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 equity. So that means if the way it is over, you know, on this side of town, is on this side of the freeway, it's this way over here as well. The resources that's over here, the resources over there. The banks that's over here, banks over here. Money over here, money over there. Credit over here, credit over there.
How you doing? All right. You don't do any body work, do you?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Not a whole bunch.
How long you been wanting to do this?
Been in the automotive business for 20, 25 years. Running the Jiffy Lube for the last 5. But the owner came and told me he was selling the business. So
when they let you go, you know, you had to think quick on your feet. What am I going to do now?
yeah, but I needed to open up new avenues, and the biggest one in being able to get this loan to get started.
Y'all give it up for Lincola Franklin.
While you were in the program, you accessed 3,500 small business loans. So maybe if we could extend that.
So if we extend the $3,500 that we already gave you to up to $10,000, and we do it for 2 years, your payments be like $452 a month.
How soon would you need before you start making payments?
I would say a couple months just to get me going.
So maybe we deferred your payments for 90 days. That'll help you to.
Definitely. I appreciate that.
All right, cool.
My clientele is building. Mr. Washington, he seen what my future may look like, and I'm, you know, forever grateful for him believing in me.
As of today, you doing business as Incredible Auto, borrowing $50,000. So you got a lease going already? Can
Yes,
you talk
ma'am.
to him?
This is the outside.
But how many square foot is that?
5,000.
It's nice.
It's like my dream of finally becoming a business owner and not having to work for anybody else again. I work for myself now. Thank y'all. I really want to shed some tears. And I don't have to worry about somebody selling a business and somebody coming in and telling me, hey, we don't want to continue with you anymore. Here I am, 3 months later. When you're investing in something that you love to do, it makes everything a lot easier.
We felt like that if we could redevelop and change this corner, that it would help turn the neighborhood. Once they can put funds here and deposits, then We're not going to allow the money to go outside of this community. We're going to put the money back into the community.
And it's gonna scare some people. It's gonna scare the hell out of them. Because now you can see that it can be done. So you have no more excuses. Those institutions that are in place right now are not gonna idly sit back.
You don't think? They don't care about this.
Yes, they do. Because if this catches on, it becomes a threat.
You really believe that?
Mark my word. Because it can inspire others to think that they can be free. This is about being free.
Economic justice is righting wrongs, fixing the system, some type of repayment for injustice. A tree is known by the fruit that it bears. So if I don't see any fruit, then I don't see any impact. So if you have money and you have wealth and you can't create impact, what's the point?
What is justice? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for people of color?
Justice is just not quite yet available for everybody.
Justice. Justice. It's just being a black man in this world. Man, good luck.
Justice is something that we need, but that's what we're fighting for.
Right now, today, I can look at justice as empowerment.
Just doing what's right and being fair.
You ever heard that phrase, get your money right? I gotta help the community get their money right. The community has to get their money right, and this is an opportunity to get the money right. So I'm on a mission, and it ain't over. It's just begun.
So I have here a copy of The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap by Merzra Bardaran and Baradaran. So it's called The Color of Money, and it's a phenomenal read. Half the book is the citations. So they do a great job researching. What's interesting about this is it talks about the history of the black banking industry. And whether it's Frederick Douglass and the Freedmen's Bureau, or whether it's Maggie Walker in 1903 out of Baltimore and then into Richmond, there's always been some inspiration there for blacks to cultivate wealth post-Civil War.
Right.
And I'm wondering, there have been episodes of Jim Crowism and rebirths and then Trumpism and such. What does it look like for you coming out of COVID and looking at the wealth gap as it was portrayed here and as we live it? What does it look like for you in the future? What role do CDFIs play? What role do you play in Little Rock, Arkansas?
Thank you for that question. When I think about that, I think about football and the quarterback. And the quarterback, without the quarterback, the team can't make the plays. And so I look at, myself, my organization as the quarterback for our community, because we're in a position to be able to be a conduit of resources and make those critical plays that need to be made to help advance equity and to help build our community.
It's a delightful, there we go. That's a delightful response. Another question I had, and then we'll turn it over to the audience momentarily, but you transitioned from being a barber to also founding a CDFI, and you merged your barbering skills with a sort of financial passion. And I'm wondering, can you talk about the initial challenges you faced? Obviously, when you lend money out, that doesn't necessarily mean it's coming back.
Yeah.
So at what point did you say, I can't keep doing it this way? And what were those challenges when you tried to make it more official?
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, we emerged out of an unmet credit need in the community. So it wasn't just the folks that attend the barber college, it was the customers. Of course, the customers pay, an addition, a lower rate for the haircut at a barber college because they're getting a haircut by students. So a lot of our community members, your single moms with 3 and 4 kids that couldn't afford to go and pay $25 or $30 at a barber shop will bring their kids to the barber college to get a package deal. And so we, making these small loans of $250 to the students, and they start, it's not hard to sell money. So they started telling their friends, they started telling their family members that they knew were in need. They started telling their, anybody that they knew that needed a loan, they would send them over to the barber school and say, hey, go ask Mr. Washington, he'll loan you the money. And so we needed to build our infrastructure because initially we were keeping everything on Excel spreadsheets. That's how we were tracking who owed what and what day they had to pay back and how much did they owe, because sometimes people would call and say, hey, I need a deferment, or I need to, pay a little bit now and pay a little bit later. And so we were, working with the community. It was something that, okay, now if you don't do right here, you're not going to be able to get a loan anywhere. This is your last only option. And so they understood the critical need because, a lot of them were credit invisible. They didn't have a credit score, or they messed their credit up before they knew what credit was. And so, providing that financial literacy to help them understand their credit, the only way you can do that is you had to be able to, and as long as they're small, so they're not life-changing, but they do provide keep your lights on or help you if you have a car repair that needs to be done. A car is a vital asset. It's like a heart, a liver, or a lung. If you can't get to work, you can't get to an interview, you can't, people need transportation. And so, we needed to build infrastructure. So I started studying and looking at, so the challenges were, managing that portfolio, doing research, reading and looking at, attending conferences and going to places to learn about these community development financial institutions. The book, The Color of Money, educated me on a lot of things there. I'm like, wow, there's these CDFIs play a significant role. We have to become a CDFI, and I looked and, we had we have 19 CDFIs in the state of Arkansas, but there are none that, are black and brown. So, and they're like banks. They became like banks, even though they are non-regulated entities. And that's the advantage of having a community development financial institution loan fund. Remember I said there are 6 different types. You have venture capitalists, you have your credit unions, you have your CDFI banks, you have your loan funds and microfinance entities. But the loan funds are the most flexible CDFIs that are among that group, because they're able to, they're revolving loan funds is what it is. So these revolving loan funds, look, once we, after building up about a list of about 100 borrowers, we submitted to the Treasury, and we talked about, being an alternative and providing, entrepreneurs that were micro enterprises with access to capital and access to credit, so that they'll be able to be sustainable, scalable, and profitable. And so I started looking at, okay, what are these payday lenders doing? What do they have that makes them so attractive? So I looked at the websites, I read books, I went into their offices, and I looked around. I'm like, wow, I said, it's smooth, it's easy. It's no psychological trauma that you go through when applying for a loan, which is the reason, people in our community, people fear what they don't know. So if I'm wanting a loan or needing a loan and I'm thinking about getting rejected, then I may not even go and apply because I'm going to get rejected. And so I said, well, we could provide this, safer alternative and report the credit. So we built a relationship with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And we started reporting credit on the small loans. Well, what that done was, then we did a study, we did a lending landscape analysis on the area, because if you look at a city, you look at, you got to look at the poorest wards in those neighborhoods, in those communities, to be able to understand where you need to start first. All right, we started right there. We did a lending landscape analysis with a tool provided by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, the NCRC, and that tool allowed us to be able to have a global view to see where loans were being made, where they weren't being made, where home purchases are happening, where a small business being created. And we said, okay, so there was a stark difference between where activity was happening and where it wasn't. And the area where it wasn't happening that's our target market. So CDFIs identify a target market, and they identify a target population. Okay, so whether you're African American, Hispanic, or you're part of a low income census tract in an area where it's really very low income, then that's where you focus. That's where the CDFI fund, which is a department inside of the Treasury Department that certifies CDFIs across the country. And they strategically place these CDFIs so that they can bring about equity. And so economic justice. And so once we did this global had a global view of where we needed to start, then which was this neighborhood, we started reporting their loans, and credit scores rose by 62%. And so when we saw that, we was like, oh man, so if we continue to, and then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, we were already online. We were already lending online. We were already, because we service 45 census tracts, 12 cities, and 2 counties. So how does a small organization, you saw the shipping container in the film, we didn't have the funding to start off with a big building. So I was like, man, we need a facility. And so I'm like, well, we could get the repurposed shipping container, put it right out there, and we have now a place-based strategy, because you already have people attending the college that need the services and products. You already have people coming and frequenting the area that most of them are unbanked or underbanked. So this would be perfect, fertile ground. And that's exactly what happened. And so from there, the pandemic hit, and a lot of our small businesses couldn't get the PPP loan. Right. They couldn't access the PPP loan because they had no relationship with banks. Maybe they've been using Cash App to run their business on Cash App. They know people did that, but some people run their business on a Cash App. And a lot of people think that Chime, NetSpend, or Green Dot, or Cash App are banks. That's because a lot of people I tell you, what are you using? Who do you bank with? I bank with Chime. I use Cash App. And I said, well, that's not a bank, right? You can't take your records or your transactions to a traditional bank and they give you a loan, they're not gonna do it. And so, no, I never knew that. So education, information is key. A lot of people just don't have the information. If you know better, you can do better. But if you don't know, what you don't know can hurt you, and it hurts a lot of our communities across the country. And so we provided in 2020, our lending just blew up. We went from 90 loans on the books to 900 loans on the books because people were locked in, they were shut in, they couldn't get out, and they needed things. And so we kept the money moving during the whole process, which was, and that raised the awareness of our organization and how we were looked at now as a go-to source. So we were well positioned for those small business owners, or for those community members that were in need and didn't have a relationship at a bank or were unbanked. It's the thing about being unbanked, and generational poverty. Generational poverty is a mentality that's passed down from generation to generation. So if my mom kept her money under the mattress, where you think the safest place, I think, as a child seeing that, is to keep my money, where's the safest place is under the mattress. And so until I learned better, everything I put under the mattress, But so this affects a lot of our community members, and so financial literacy is a thing, but then getting access to capital to put that newly gained knowledge to work. You can get all the financial literacy in the world, but if I saw somebody post, if you ain't showing me the bag, then if you're not showing the money, if I don't have any money, I can't put what I have learned to work to be able to show and prove that I'm credit worthy.
Yes. And that's one reason why it's not called the Financial Literacy Center. It's called the Financial Empowerment Center. We have a few people here. I'll recognize Plachette Monroe and Councilmember Edward Burrows' office, because that's a project of recent, literally working on it today, where we take $500 when we give it to folks, but over the course of a year after they do a credit builder loan. So every month they put in $44 a month for that 12 months. That's $528 in. They recoup the principal of $500, and we match them with an additional $500. So there's a little carrot at the end of the journey.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Credit the council member, but also United Way for the pilot loan on that.
Amazing.
I wanted to ask one final question and then turn it over to this wonderful audience. How has the community's reception been to the film since it had the Oscar fever and all of that?
Oh man. First off, it was just amazing to be a part of the Oscars and to be nominated to be nominated film. I never would have thought in a million years that this film would have gained the global attention that it has gained, because it doesn't just affect Little Rock. It affects communities across the globe. And so I've gotten calls from London, I've gotten calls from Belgium, I've gotten calls from Africa, I've gotten calls from all over the place. People have seen the film. And the community now, of course, the demand, they started, now I know what that is, I know what it is, I know what you guys are about, I know what you do. We started definitely getting more customers. But then it also, you think, well, what's your long-term game plan? And the long-term was, being able to take deposits. Because, any transaction, financial transaction that we do, it has to tender, it has to settle at a bank. So if the bank wants to frustrate the purpose, then they can do that because they have that depository. So the depository is powerful. And so that's, we have the loan fund going, we have these things going. So, how do we lock this in and really be able to continue to create tangible outcomes and grow and build equity in our community? So we had to become we had to get chartered People Trust Community Federal Credit Union. And we basically just used our members that we was already making loans to be our field of membership. And so we sent everybody, information, they responded with what they need, and then we went through the 17-step process of becoming a credit union. And we chartered the first credit union in Arkansas, September 14, 2022, in 40 years. And now today, we have 600 members, and we have about $5 million in assets. These are two separate entities. That's one key thing to note here. One is a regulated financial institution. It's a credit union. And the other one is a non-regulated financial institution. That's a CDFI loan fund. So having those two working hand in hand, you're able to meet people where they are on their financial journey, wherever they are, because we can provide. So CDFIs are nonprofits, so they're able to. So we get money from banks, foundations, public, private, and CDFIs are also, because of their that designation is powerful because they're able to be intermediaries. Right. So if you think about, we became a housing agency in 2020 as well, because of the amount of, because being in the position where we're in, a lot of people were coming to us for a lot of resources, being that conduit of resources. So we had a public housing agency that imploded. Okay, it had 200 participants on a shelter plus care program. So these are people with disabilities, mental health issues that are very, very poor, vulnerable, that have to have a subsidy to be able to help them to pay their rent. And so we were the only other eligible applicant to be able to take the grants, or else the city would have lost $3.2 million in grants for the homeless. So we stepped up, we took the grants, and we've been running that program now. We're now the lead agency for the Homeless Management Information System HUD programs, and we manage 5 grant programs for HUD in Little Rock, Arkansas, Pulaski County, serving 2 counties. But what that does is, thank you. What that does is it allows us to be able to reach our most vulnerable population, fulfill our mission. So as they come through the door, if they need housing assistance, they need rapid rehousing or homeless prevention, then what we're able to do, first question that everybody that works at People Trust without a staff, about 15, everybody that works there, the first question they ask is, do you have a bank account? Most of them say they don't have a bank account. So then that's when my other representative steps in and said, well, let me get you a bank account going, because they couldn't receive some of the subsidy because they has to direct deposit into an account. So we open up an account, and we're getting ready to have instant issue cards. So they'll be able to get the card right there on the spot. And so we've been able to, and we're opening up, between 5 and 10 accounts, a week.
That's excellent. Another hand for Arlo there.
Thank you.
All right, now who has a question? Who has a question? I'll go around. I know Colonel Ivan has a question. All right. Anna, anyone? Here you go, sir.
Mr. Washington, thank you for visiting this campus and bringing a message of hope. An economic warrior in our presence, what it looks like from the ground level up. Give those who are disaffected a voice and a reason to take another step to go forward. My question for you is this. One, first, talk about that timeline. The gentleman said, you're going to scare some folks. Because what you're doing is you're shifting the mindset, the economics, and these folks know where they have credibility within their own communities. They don't, in other words, what's happening is that they realize you did not provide us the attention, credit, and so on, and we could have been candidates, but yet you come over and provided some of the things. They weren't even seen, they were invisible. So talk about that time and where you are now, because you seem to be very strategic going forward so you can give them credibility within that community. I saw the community, 8,000. How many banks? 14?
14 banks.
30,000, no banks. And so that is a microcosm of a lot of communities in America. Can you just talk about that? I have more questions, but I won't think, but I'll see you afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. So you think about timeline, we had to build a portfolio, a loan portfolio. I didn't have a lot of capital, a lot of funding to have a large portfolio. I was working what I had, so I would take $1,000 out of my paycheck, and I'd make 4 loans a month. And when we hit $1,000, then as people are calling, my staff would say, it's me and one administrator, just 2 people at the time. Hey, we hit our ceiling this month, but we're gonna crank it back up next month. And then they would say, okay, we'll wait till next month and come in next month. That's how we kept continuous lending going. And so doing that, I had to learn. It was a lot of hard lessons. Lots of, I used to, as a CDFI, I had to learn how to generate income. How to make your products and your services sustainable, and then how do you make them to the point, create a model that funders, banks, foundations would invest in. What do you do? So you had to, and what I found out is, if it don't make dollars, it don't make no sense. They wouldn't, the loan bank, I don't care what the mission is, no margin, no mission. Because it takes money to do God's work, and this is God's work. And so I would have to go into banks, and I'd say, well, how does a CDFI just have this designation? What do I do? How do I go and talk to these banks that clearly are supposed to be funders of CDFIs? But because there are not a lot of quarterbacks in the community, the banks are not used to people coming and asking any questions. So you have uneducated bank employees, and then you have uneducated community members about the resources. So now I went around to banks, and I have lots of stories to share about my experience walking up in the bank, asking them to provide some funding so I can make loans to people that they don't even want coming through the doors. But it's an affirmative obligation of the bank to provide loans to people in their assessment area that they take deposits from. But then how do you have that conversation? I had to go in, and so I had that trial and error. I go in, and some of them would call the security and say, well, get him out of here. And I had to, and I would just go through the route of, what we need, what CDFIs do. We rectify any economic disparity in our target market. So I then would have to go back to the bank the next day or a couple days, and I'd tell them, I said, well, let me see your public file. So they give me the public file, and I had a nice little comment I slide inside the public file so the examiner will see it when he come back, and I tell him I'll be back. So then what I do when the examiner get, then I go to their primary regulator and I file a complaint for discrimination on the population of low income. And when I do that, then now the Federal Reserve or the FDIC or whoever their primary regulator is gonna call their bank and say, hey, you got a complaint out there. Well, if they're in the middle of a merger, that merger ain't gonna happen until their complaint is settled. So we caught one bank like that one time, and they ended up having to give us, they gave us $100,000 in loan capital, but they did it really quick just so it can go to the CEO of the bank, this is a $1 billion bank, called me on, Mr. Washington, what is it that what you want to do? I said, they said, what do you want, Mr. White? I said, 10 million. He said, 10 million? Why you feel like $10 million? I said, well, because y'all been doing this for a while. And so I'm getting back pay and forward pay so it don't happen no more for the community. They said, well, you ain't never had no $10 million on your books. So I said, well, we'll give you $100,000, so I'll take it. I took the $100,000 and we spread that out, made a bunch of loans of $500 and $1,000 loans, just so people wouldn't have to go to predatory payday loans and reporting credit as well. Well, that gained attention from the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation. They loved what we were doing. They said, well, you know what, we need to support the CDFI. So they then provided us with, CDFIs are spread lenders. Basically, we buy and sell money. We buy money at a low cost, and then we sell it with a spread, and we live off the spread. But it's still better than a predatory payday loan. It's still a safer alternative. These are high-risk loans. So there is a risk there. But then you have your loan loss reserve that cover in and help your loans that go bad. But if I got $25,000 and I make $25,000 in $500 loans and one of them go bad, I ain't worried about it too much. But so that understanding and learning, but then we don't go into banks and kick in the door. We go into banks and present them with an opportunity to do the right thing, obey the law. CRA, Community Reinvestment Act.
Is 95% of your loans still being paid back?
Yes, yes. That's our small dollar loan program. They call it the SDL program. That's a program with the Community Development Financial Institution Fund. That's one of their programs. They have several programs that communities could be taking advantage of if they had these quarterbacks there. So through that program, they provide loan loss reserve and technical assistance funding for the CDFIs that make small dollar loans. So for our loans that go bad, that loan loss reserve kick in and cover all those bad loans.
That's good. Question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a
Thank you.
very informative session today.
Thank you.
The more you know.
That's it. That's
The
it.
more you know.
That's right.
CDFIs are not, it's not a term that is new to me, but I did learn that today that they're unregulated. As a small business owner in the county, we struggling, right? We are a government contracting cybersecurity firm, and we're bidding on contracts, but due to reasons like past performance, we can't directly reach out to these agencies. So our strategy is to partner. So as we're partnering and submitting bids, I still got people that support me, like an assistant or content creators to help put out stuff, right? So I've been looking into other avenues on how to create income. One of them is real estate. So I have a idea to, because I have property in Baltimore City, and I wanted to, I've noticed that it's a food desert on my side of town. Like it's literally 15 minutes grocery store. And the one that is close is not very nutritious, as they would say. The food isn't fresh, a lot of additives, right? That's a whole nother story. So I have an idea to create a facility that's, that would make food accessible, right? Through local farmers and things of that sort. If I were to go to a CDFI tomorrow morning, right, what kind of requirements would I need to furnish to them for them to be able to give me money to buy or lease a building, right, and the necessary materials that we would need to get started? Because this is something that I see as not only a lucrative opportunity for me, but for my community. And when I say lucrative, I'm not just talking money, right? I truly believe that if you got the right food in your body, now you can go into class, you can go into work, and I can actually sit and be focused, and pay attention. But if I only jacked up on Takis and Yellow 5, right, it's gonna be very difficult for me to pay attention, even if I want to, right? So, you could just give me and anybody else that may have ideas on, because these are community people in here. Councilman Burrows, I got property in your area, but as members of the community, we're boots on the ground, so we see what can directly be effective. What are some tangible things you can give us just to so we can walk? I know me, I'm trying to go on one by Friday and say, hey, I've identified a building, this is what I want to do, can you give me the money and funding for this?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you notice in the film, we had a food truck on the parking lot because the students show up to school hungry, and that's a food desert. So again, wanting to solve for what the community needs are, we put a food truck there, and it employs local aspiring food truck owners to be able to have a place to come and cook if they don't have a food truck. But we funded food trucks now. We have food truck. We had this one food truck, and it was lady sold her house to start her business, and she took the money and she bought a food truck. It's called Southern Hoes, Heu. But the food is real good. It's a brunch and breakfast, really good food. And she wanted to get a loan. She's good. Credit card processing is happening, cash flowing real good. But she couldn't get a loan from the bank. So, because her credit score is low, because most of us, small business owners, leverage our personal credit because we don't have business credit. So she's leveraged her personal credit, and her credit score is low, but she's making money, good paymaster. So, but her score is keeping her from accessing the funding that she needs to be able to grow and expand. So she ended up getting a merchant cash advance loan. And the merchant cash advance loan is similar to a predatory payday loan for a consumer or personal, but it's for a business. And that loan was a $40,000 loan that she needed, right? And she paying $7,000 a month on this loan. So she don't see her principal going nowhere, and she still had these big payments. So she came to People Trust, and we were able to provide her, we refinanced that loan we bought the loan from the folks and we refinanced it for her, and we gave her a payment less than $1,000 a month. And she's now opening up her brick and mortar where she's gonna have a place you can come on and sit down and eat. She still got the food truck going too. But to your question, was that saying count up the costs before you build a house? So before you go and first find out what initiatives and does the CDFI have? You know, are they focused on housing? Are they focused on consumer finance? Are they focused on small business? If they focus on small business and you go in there and you've done your due diligence and you have your plan, your project, and you got your cash flow budget projection to tell, you know, if the idea that you have is gonna make money. Because remember, at the end of the day, you know, the CDFI has to be sustainable as well. So they're automatically thinking like a financial institution, like, okay, is it gonna have impact? Remember I told you a lot of CDFIs became like traditional banks. So they require a credit score, a lot of them. So you wanna find a CDFI that is mission minded, you know, so you do your research. And Wakefield Harold Pettigrew, a friend of mine, colleague of mine, was over Wakefield for a while, so I know I've heard they do great work. That may be an option to go and just tell them that you have, and just have a conversation first and say, hey, you know, I have an idea, I have a project, and I want to solve for a food desert in my community. And here's my idea. And just have a conversation. Once you have the conversation, then they will be able to possibly sponsor you on an application to the Treasury for a healthy food financing initiative. So you want to go to the CDFI and say, hey, can you sponsor me on the application for a healthy food financing initiative that I have in my community? And then y'all can dive in from there. But that would be my suggestion, because if you go in and you say, hey, I see a project, I need the money, it's not going to happen, because they're going to want to know more and what impact. You know, think about impact. How many people in the area? You know, what's the demographics look like? They're gonna want to know all of that before they just jump into the project. But definitely sponsoring you for a healthy food financing initiative that you have, sponsoring an application. These applications roll around every year, so they can, if you go and you build a relationship, start relation. One thing I learned about being a barber is it's a relationship business. You want to get to know them and go in. This shouldn't be a long process. You should be able to get with somebody, tell them who you are, tell them about your project, and then they set you on a path toward either sponsoring the application or funding your project. If they fund your project, then you just need to make sure that you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's in terms of making it cash flow. At the end of the day, that cash flow piece is important. If I have an idea, and that idea, I may be passionate about knitting blankets together. But if I'm knitting blankets together and they're not moving, then I'm not making no money. So they're gonna wanna make sure, you wanna make sure that you've done your due diligence and made sure your feasibility study is a feasibility to see, you know, if it'll work. Because a lot of grocery stores, a lot of times in food deserts, there's a reason why you don't have your big Kroger's or your big grocery stores in those areas, because number one, theft is an issue. food goes bad if it don't sell too fast. Loss is an issue on your product. And so a big grocery store may not be the solution, and maybe you just need a little bodega. You might just need a smaller fresh market, where people can come in, a little corner store, and then you can start small. It's better to start at the small end of the horn and come out at the big end than it is start at the big end and come out at the small end. So, you can start with a smaller fresh food initiative and then grow it from there, and then tell them your plan of wanting to grow from here to here.
Question.
Mr. Washington, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am just blown away. I've learned a little bit about CDFIs over the past year or two through work and a couple other things, but this right here is just the most education that I've received, so thank you.
Oh man, thank you so much.
My question is, how are you getting a 95% repayment rate? It doesn't, it seems like you may have kind of glossed over that, but I know that it's not an easy thing to work with your community members. And then compounding with that, is there something with the, actually, you know what, just take that question right there.
Okay. So and it's a great question, and I didn't mean to gloss over it, but I will go into more depth. I talked about a loan loss reserve, but more so than that, it goes back to the relationship. You come in for a loan, you apply for a loan, ongoing financial literacy. So it's not just a one and done. Once you in, you ain't never out. We're gonna work with you through the whole. When you get your next loan, we want you to get it from us. When you come and you want to purchase your vehicle, we want you to get your loan from us. When you get ready to buy your home, we want you to get your loan from us. So we think about the lifetime value of a customer, and with that, it allows us to be able to establish a relationship. And because we don't use credit to approve loans, but we do look at does the individual have cash flow? Can they afford the loan? So we're not just making a loan. If you can't afford a loan, then maybe if we have a foundation that has given us unrestricted grant dollars, then and they want us to give out these grants to emergency support for the community members, then we give them a grant. So it's just determining, what fits. And once we see, okay, well, you can't get a $10,000 loan today, but we can give you a $1,000 loan today. We can give you a $500 loan today. Now, if you perform well with this $500 or this $1,000, then we can increase your loan size from there. And so most of the time, when they get 60% of their loan paid off, then we can increase their loan. If they call us and they say, hey, you know what? I lost my job, or I'm having a hard time right now. We tell them up front, keep the lines of communication open. Communication can rule a nation and can destroy a nation. So we tell them, we say, hey, keep the lines of communication open. We've had people to not communicate, but when they don't communicate, the first thing they see happen is their credit scores. They get that notification on their phone, the credit score drop. And they wanted to go out and they wanted to finance a car. I had one guy, he said, man, I got everything else looking good, but this People Trust loan is still on my credit. Now he took the loan, he didn't pay the loan back, but then he got ready to do a bigger deal and he couldn't do the deal because it was on the credit score, it was on his credit. So he called, he says, hey, I need to make this right. And I was like, I know. So then we were able to refinance his loan, put him on the better terms, and get him to where he's able to now do his other projects. But once the community members know that it's going to show up somewhere down the road, then most of them, and then when they learn, education is key, information is key. Once they learn how they can leverage their credit score to fulfill to help them to be able to grow their life financially, then they're with that, because a lot of times, having that opportunity has not been presented or available. So that's one of the ways, we manage it with a loan loss reserve, and we also manage it with our relationship building and our ongoing financial education. Did they gloss over it, or was that good?
Can you touch more on the loan loss reserve and just kind of
Sure. So a loan loss reserve is if you have a loan that creates a loss, meaning they don't pay back, then you have a reserve amount of cash over here just sitting, which is normally about 10% to cover any defaulted loans. So And a lot of the loans that we do are guaranteed because we're a preferred SBA lender. So, and on the consumer loans, we have foundations that may give guarantee. They may say, hey, we'll guarantee all your loans. So if the loan doesn't pay back, then we're able to tap that guarantee to pay that loan back. And it's able to, we're able to count that as being paid back on that person's behalf. And before that person can get another loan, then they have to go through our financial literacy workshops, which we offer online. Think about how do you reach everybody, So we had to partner with other CDFIs that offer online platforms that they can get access to like modules for financial literacy through the National Financial Educators Council. And they offer online digital financial literacy to where you can do a financial capability test first to assess where they are. And once we see where they are, then we're able to know exactly, okay, you need to complete budgeting, you need to complete credit, you need to complete these modules, and then we Zoom with them and can go through the modules or answer any questions that they may have. And so that's been an effective tool for us. On the business plan, we have one-page business plans. People, they're not really want to take a 50-page business plan no more. One page business plan and a cash flow budget projection is really the main two pieces that we need. And we just work with the business owner to help them set up the infrastructure, whereas the accounting infrastructure, you think about a lot of business owners do mental accounting, but you have to have that accounting infrastructure through your QuickBooks or something like that, set that part of it up. Once that's set up, a lot of them, we help with getting your tax ID number, getting your DUNS number. We're getting ready to start reporting business credit. So there's just a lot of services and opportunities to be able to build that rapport and establish that relationship with our community members. Gives people trust, so people gotta trust us.
Very, very nice. We have here the 2022 Maryland Small Business Development Community Champion, Lindsay Pill.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
And she actually also works at Kiva, which offers small business.
Kiva, I heard of Kiva, yeah.
But I'm going to give you a chance to ask our final question.
Thank you.
Thank you. First, thank you, Mr. Washington.
Thank you for being here.
Such a wealth of information. I've had the honor of coming through the banking industry.
Yes.
I work very closely with CDFIs now. I support a lot of their clients with loan packaging and technical assistance.
Awesome.
My primary question to you is how do we encourage more entrepreneurs to bring their families along for the technical assistance and the financial education? Because as we know, it makes it 10 times harder for entrepreneurs to really move the needle, to really harness and implement the information that they're receiving if everyone else in their household is still operating the same and they are not gaining access to that information. So how do we support more of the family dynamic of that entrepreneur versus solely the entrepreneurs alone?
Yeah, it's good stuff. Oh man, it's good. Thank you so much for your service as well. Having a conversation. Every dollar starts with a conversation. So I think that sharing your experiences, we share our experiences and we create more opportunities and platforms for maybe a dinner at dinner. We sit down at dinner and we break bread together and we talk about it. We bring up the topic about money. We have a money talk, and we have if you have an idea, what idea do you have, and then they want to share. Because we have a lot of dreams and aspirations in our community, and our community members want to see their lives change and improve financially. But how do you do it? Where do you start? Who can you go to that will have the patience? We had a gentleman that's in Sparkman, Arkansas, a population of about 427, economically distressed rural community. He's a barber for 32 years, and he wants to create, a little wing shack and have his barbershop there. And he wants to be able to revitalize his community, but he couldn't go to the local bank because even though he banks there, but the bank doesn't have time to spend with him 6 hours, 2-3 hours on his business plan. How do you get your articles incorporated? How you get incorporated? Didn't have that time to spend with them. So I think that the education that we receive as entrepreneurs, sharing that with our aspiring family members that are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs is key. Finding a financial institution that you can then refer them to, take them to, that understands, that's mission driven. You got to make sure that mission driven is there, because that's what you have to have, is a mission driven community development financial institution. I would recommend, because the development part of community development financial institutions, we're required to provide developmental services coupled with our loans. So if you get them to a financial institution like a CDFI, then they're going to get technical assistance or financial literacy, because that's one of the requirements of being a CDFI. That's what makes us different, is community banking, community-based banking. Oh yeah. So remember I told you we were online. And when the pandemic hit, we had a lot of small business owners that, let me tell you some things that some of the banks would do. And some banks, not all banks, but some banks can be very cruel, be very mean to their customers. And if you don't have, if you don't have a big bank account and a lot of money in the bank, sometimes it can be, discouraging to go in and ask for any information outside of just cashing a check or making a deposit or withdrawal. So when the PPP came around, a lot of business owners in our community, they tried to get access to that program. And some of them, because they've never had, a substantial amount of money in the bank, so the program was complicated on the front end, on the application process, and on the back end. So it was hard for the people that was applying, because a lot of the banks didn't have the technology in place to be able to make it a smooth process. So there was a lot of manual things that had to take place, and that frustrated a lot of the other entrepreneurs. So what happened was, we worked all year to try and become a SBA non-bank lender, so that we would be able to participate in the PPP program, because we had being in the community and working in the community with People Trust, lots of people, man, can I get the PPP loan from y'all? Why can't I get the PPP loan from y'all? I don't want to go, I want to come to y'all and get a PPP loan. My bank won't even give me an application. And so, we felt like, man, I really want to be able to help these small business owners. Couldn't pay their employees, having to close their doors. And so through the grace of God, the first 3 months of 2021, I got a call. I was in the office, and we were pretty much I dealt with some things within the SBA that was prohibiting us from moving our application forward, and we had to send a letter. I sent a letter to Stephen Mnuchin at the time, which was the Treasury Secretary. I sent a letter to all these other places trying to get somebody, so they escalated our application so that we would be able to access the program. But I had given up on it, and I got a call from the Treasury, FinCEN, and the SBA, and they were saying, do you still want to be a PPP lender? And I said, a non-bank lender, and I said, yes. And they was like, okay. So, went through whatever due diligence we had to go through to make that happen, and then we became a non-bank lender. Now, we needed money to lend to these small businesses. Yes, you're a PPP lender, but how do you get the capital the funding to be able to make, a $100,000 loan, $200,000 loan, $50,000 loan, $20,000 loan to these businesses, existing businesses. So they already have, they already making money. They just hit a rough spot because they're closed right now. And so I had to contact, this is where the economic warriors come into play, and your community members that know and understand what the community credit needs come into play. I reached out to Opportunity Finance Network, which is a huge intermediary CDFI that has member CDFIs, and said, hey, we're a CDF, we became a non-bank lender, but we don't have any capital, any money to loan to the businesses. And they say, well, you being a CDFI, you can access a liquidity facility through the Federal Reserve. So I had to first learn what a liquidity facility is, and then I said, okay, it's a line of credit from the Federal Reserve. So I said, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, they was like, you can call this other CDFI up in New York, and they did it. They'd done like 4 loans with a liquidity facility. Call them and ask them how they done it. So I called up there and asked them how they done it. I said, hey, you know, look at your number. How'd y'all do this? And they said, well, you got to get a local bank to let you use their master account at the Federal Reserve. They got to sign an agreement, and then the Federal Reserve will use them as an intermediary to get you the line of credit. So now, I had to go back to my banks that I walked in, and I was, you know. But anyways, we had built relationships with banks. Once they learned and saw that, hey, we're not here to take away your customers or not here to hurt you. We're here to be a bridge. We're here to have an inclusive economy. We're here to make our economy stronger. But we do understand your regulatory restrictions that you can't lend to everybody because you're required to have a credit score through regulation. They can't lend under a certain amount, under certain credit score criteria. So it said, well, can I use your accounts? Well, send us the information. But the banks get CRA credit by participating with CDFIs. So that's one of the things, you know, a bank can participate and make a loan to a CDFI, and then they get CRA credits for that. So it takes the pain points out of how do they fulfill their affirmative obligation, and how do they obey the law? They've been wanting to get in compliance, but they ain't had no players, no quarterbacks in the community that they can play ball with. So when they find that and they understand that, then they're able to feel more comfortable with providing you with capital as you need it. And so they ended up signing it. Once they signed it, I sent it back to the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland at the time, and they opened us up a liquidity facility. In 3 months, we made $52 million in PPP loans to 2,600 small businesses nationwide. We made $5 million in fees off those PPP loans. We took the fee money and bought 2 old bank buildings in the community, refurbished them, put our staff in there, hired staff, and went on the path to charter a credit union. And but that's how you know, we were able to leverage the CDFI program. That's why it's very, very important for communities that have economic disparity to have access to CDFI loan funds and work closely with those CDFI loan funds, because they have access to 51% of the world's wealth through the Department of Treasury and the Federal Reserve.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, clap for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, as a final,
I think we have one here. Can
Yep.
we get him?
Yep, I'll
Okay.
cross over.
Okay.
As a final blurb, though, I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to talk about the filmmaking piece of this, which makes your work spectacular and gives you that global appeal. And I got a call, I don't know if you knew this, I got a call that said, you know, well, hey, Heath, we know you have Arlo coming. Dwayne Wade is interested in this performance, so make sure, you know, you leave something for that. So I wanted to give you a runway onto the question. You know, this work got a chance to be profiled. My kids were cheering for the film to win on Oscar night. We're all sitting there. But I want to make that point that how does someone like Dwayne Wade, the Hoffman character, who's the director of the film, I know that they were sort of cherry picking. Where can we find a financial story in the country, right? So how does that work? How do they land on you and say, this guy? And then how do you then get to Hollywood? Like, let's do the happy ending part of this.
Yeah, who would have thunk it? Thank you, it's a great question. I get that often of how in the world did that happen. Donna Gambrell, which was the first director of the CDFI Fund program, is a colleague of mine, and I'm a member of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs, and so she's the chair of she's in that she's a member of that, one of the founding members of that organization, and Donna, I oftentimes have told Donna about, she's been a mentor mentor of mine as well. She's been in the CDFI industry much longer than I have. And I would often call her and share with her, updates on what we're doing in the community. We purchased an old bank building. We now putting a bank in the community that hadn't had a bank. And she's really intrigued by all of this. And so whenever they reached out, and then the fact that we put a repurposed shipping container on the campus of a barber college, that was something that whenever she said, they asked her, it's like, well, which one of these CDFIs can we go and we live with for 1 year and follow the money? They wanted to follow the money. Where is it going? When they get these donations, where does the money go? And so she said, well, you have to go to Little Rock, Arkansas, and you have to go and meet Arlo, Washington, because he's a barber, that has founded a CDFI, started a CDFI, and he has it on the campus of his barber college, and he runs it out of a repurposed shipping container. And they said, okay, we want to meet him. So they called me up. We jumped on a Zoom together, and John Hoffman and Christine Turner, told me about who they were and what they did and how they found me, and that they wanted to be with us for a year. It was 400 hours of footage that just condensed down to 35 minutes. But you imagine somebody riding with you and sitting at your dinner table when you're eating dinner. In intimate moments and settings with your family. You have these films and cameras are all around, and so we had to think about that. We didn't want to exploit the community. Didn't want to be said, oh, you're exploiting the community members. No, we don't want that. We already have a good rapport and want to keep that. But they assured us that the integrity would be at a high level, that they wouldn't even get in the way and they would disappear in the room. And they would get consents from everyone before they put them on film. And so we agreed to go with it, to do it, because I felt like that there was not a lot of people that knew about community development financial institutions that had the information, that understood how they work and understood how critically important they were for communities and how to leverage that designation. And so we agreed to it. My wife, my family, my kids. I have 2 girls and a boy. And and there was a lot of footage that didn't even make the film, but who knows what'll happen in the future. But so that's how it came about. And they were with us for a whole year. And this is the results. So talk about the Oscars and Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade is an executive producer of the film. Well, his organization, 59th and Prairie, his production company. They look for these type of stories to uplift, stories that have impact, stories that affect our community. And so John Hoffman and Christine Turner, once they had the film, they sent the film around to different executive producers because they wanted to push the film. And so he saw the film and fell in love with the film. And when at that point, from there, Mass Mutual Insurance Company Foundation, Mass Mutual Insurance Foundation, and Andrew Niku Foundation, they all are executive producers as well. And so, but Dwayne's 59th and Prairie, is one of the main producers that, and PayPal, sorry, I can't leave out PayPal. PayPal had they have a $530 million commitment to close the racial wealth gap, and the film was one of their investments to be able to put some color on the racial wealth gap and explain it to people, and so that's how it all came about.
All right, young man, go for it.
It is not already obvious, I am very young, and when I grow up, I want to start a business, and I was wondering, with your customers, do you have more of a business relationship or more of just a friendly?
More, I'm sorry, the last part?
Friendly relationship.
Friendly relationship. Oh yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that question. One of the things that I used to, that I tell all the barbers, I am a licensed barber instructor, and I train barbers, and I put out a lot of barbers. Barbering is my passion, and I still can cut some hair today. My eyesight ain't as good, but I still can cut some hair. But one of the things I told new barbers when they get out and they go into a barber shop, one of the questions I asked them, is how many friends did you make today? Not how many hairs you cut, not how much money you made, but how many friends did you make? So relationships are built on trust. And if we can establish a relationship on trust, then we can do business.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming out. Will you take a few
Thank you.
handshakes? And
Absolutely. Would love to.
So
Thank
you'll
you.
have that opportunity as
Thank
well.
you all for sitting here as well and listening.
And I'll just say that in closing, this was obviously something that was on the college's radar. The backstory in 30 seconds. So I get an email sometime around February. Hey, Heath, let's put something together for Financial Capability Month. I said, well, let me see what I can do, right? And so I go straight to the source. I reached out to this gentleman straight up, and he reached straight back out. And I was amazed, but it was a Little Rock connection somewhere in there. And we just felt right at home with the conversational loop. And then constantly, bringing it up and making sure it can happen. And this didn't happen overnight. This took some work, right? But really grateful for the faces you don't get a chance to see. Donika Jackson, Jamie Blackley, folks in the communications department, folks on the event staff, folks in the video team staff and the photography. And of course, one of my pillars here, Victoria Saunders, just being a source to talk back and a feedback loop, keep me present, right? And so that's how this type of opportunity happens. We also have the ongoing relationship with FSC First, our local CDFI, and just keeping that on our clients' track and radar as well, that this was an opportunity that they could come and benefit from. And now it will be immortalized by the college by being taped here, which we're so grateful for. So Arlo, thank you so much for coming out from the crowd.